Hi, and welcome to a little demo of EigenFreeD. I'm going to first of all show you a few slides. Don't worry, it's not going to be a major presentation, but I just want to go over a couple of important points, just so we don't get any confusions. Okay, so, and it's then going to be a short demo as well. So just some first important points to know, because I don't want people to get confused and start having unrealistic expectations. The first thing is that this is a project, not a product as such. And that basically means that actually there's a whole load of things I want to do with it, but it's really an investigation into the technology. The second thing is that actually when it's called EigenFreeD, free represents freedom and liberty. From what, you will find out in a moment. But it doesn't have any other connotations. It's not three-dimensional, that's for sure. Next one is that, again, you'll see what it is. This is not a replacement for existing technology. It's really just an alternative, some way to actually give us some options. And then finally, because it is a project, it's not actually something that I would say is releasable. I'm not going to be releasing it. I'm not going to be giving it to anybody. I'm not going to give out source code as yet. Once I've defined what the products are, then I might start considering it. So I don't really know what shape or form it's going to take at the moment. Okay, actually, I'll tell you what, rather than show you on a slide what it is, I'll talk about a slide in a moment, but let's just give you a demonstration because that's what everybody likes. So basically what we're talking about is a way to use eigenharps without using EigenD. So that's where the title comes from. It's basically eigenharps free of EigenD or free of the daemon. It's written in C++ and C. It doesn't require any environment, so it can be embedded into any application. Also, basically the technology can be used in all sorts of different ways, as I'll talk about later. It is also the lowest level access you can get to the eigenharps, as we'll see in a moment. And currently, because of the way it actually interacts with the base station, it will work definitely for the alpha. That's what I'm going to show you it on. But it should also work perfectly happily with the tau as well, because it obviously uses the base station. But it will not currently work for the Pico. And that's partly about also some of the software that's released. I'd have to rely upon some already compiled software for the Pico, which is not an issue, but it's not really part of my target at the moment. Second thing is, I only use Mac OS. I used to be a Windows developer, and I don't really like it a lot, but it is actually portable, and again, I'll cover that in a moment. Okay, so let's get on to showing you a demonstration. So what I'm going to show you here, quite clearly, is, I've lost Max, is the eigenharp being used inside Max, but without any use of EigenD. So you'll see down the bottom, although I have EigenD down here on the taskbar, I don't actually have it running. Okay, so currently all I have to do is basically, you'll actually see over here in the Max log, it's already been talking. It's already loaded up and it's actually talking already to the firmware. One of the challenges for me is for the eigenharp, for the alpha and stuff, using the base stations, I have to load the firmware. Anyway, so we'll basically start it. I could start it automatically, but I quite like doing it manually. So you'll see actually, initially you can see some messages coming in, and all sorts of messages going out to the eigenharp and stuff. But what you want to see is some noise, I assume. So let's open a plugin. We'll just bought Pianotech, so I quite like that. So we'll open up Pianotech, and if I turn it up a bit, right, you can't actually see. Oh, yeah, there we are. More messages. Sorry, lots of windows. Let's close some windows. Okay, here's my eigenharp. Okay, we're not getting any noise up because I haven't turned on the max sound. Okay, not very impressive. You can do that with EigenD, but the point is, we're doing it here without EigenD, and that is entirely the point. Let me show through a couple of things that may be interesting. First of all, okay, this looks like a big Max patch. It's not really. At the end of the day, this is the important one, the EigenFreeD here. The rest of it really is just basically allowing me to control it. And then this is basically unpacking the messages that come from the EigenHarp. And then this actually basically just broadcasts it. Important point here actually is actually, if you notice now at this little message box here, this is actually showing what's coming in from the EigenHarp. So you can see I'm pressing key 53. It's at 4095 pressure, and I've got it reasonably centered. Like if I do yours, etc., do it. That's basically the communication that you get from the EigenHarp. It all comes in as key events. So even if I start using, again, if I come here and I start using the strips, you'll see that I actually get them as key events, 135 and 136. Similarly, the breath pipe as well comes from it. Obviously, you can see I've got the highest resolution here. The actual pace that's actually I'm getting the data is partially controlled by how quickly you poll the EigenHarp for the data. I think I can't remember what I've got at the moment, about 10 milliseconds or something silly like that. But that's quite controllable. Everything else really is not that exciting to see. You can obviously see over here that I scale the notes by 4 and 5 down to the MIDI notes. Point here, MIDI is irrelevant. This is the data that's coming in, and the fact that I go out via MIDI, it's neither here nor there. Of course, what I could be doing is going directly to a sound engine, which would give me actually full control over expression data directly, rather than having to just go down to 0, 1 to 7. Okay, so that's really what I want to show you. So the main thing is, you can actually see is that it's lightweight, doesn't weigh very much at all in terms of the code, and it gives you the lowest possible data access. Why replace EigenD? I'm not, and I'll repeat that again, I'm not trying to replace EigenD. I like EigenD a lot. I think it's very powerful. As you all know, I've done Creator, so I've been working hard on Bel Canto, and I've also written a couple of agents, and I like it. I think it's great as a general environment. And I will continue to use it and support it. I'm not planning to move to Max or anything like that. But choice is always good. If you don't want to actually have a separate application running, then this could be a way forward. And as you'll see, in the future, we could be doing all sorts of other interesting things. So, give you some, obviously this is not very much of a demo in terms of, you can see I can press some notes and I can get some noise out, but I can do that in EigenD. But you have to understand what's behind this a little bit. First of all, is it means that I actually understand the low-level code very, very well now. I understand how I communicate with the base station. I understand how to load it up with firmware. I understand all of the USB messages and stuff that are going backwards and forwards from the EigenHarp. I've chosen, partly for speed, but also for another reason which I'll mention, to use the lowest level EigenD source code. Now that actually means there's only 2 libraries. I use the so-called cross-platform library, PyCross, and libalpha. The PyCross is probably the interesting one. The reason I've chosen to continue to use that is because it's obviously cross-platform, which means that the code will work on both Windows and macOS. Otherwise, I could do the USB code myself, but then I would also have to make it cross-platform. So the key point is, though, is that I use very, very few classes. So it's actually very easy to understand. And that I've removed all Python access. In particular, I've had to replace the firmware loader, which was written in Python, so that it can be just pure C and C++. The reason for that is because I need it to be a self-contained building product, so that I can actually move it into other products, such as with Max. And I've shown this all works, and it's in with Max. So finally, let's just discuss a little bit about what it actually shows. Well, the first thing is, Max has its own build environment. It has to be built in a particular way for plugins to actually be embedded. So that's really what we're demonstrating, is that actually I can do it without EigenD. So it would be very, very simple also to obviously move this to Max for Live. So that could mean that you could use Ableton suite, because that obviously contains Max for Live. And you could just put an EigenHarp onto your tracks without any other software running. That seems quite a nice plan. Second thing is, we could actually possibly just use the same source code to actually create a VST. So again, you could then put it inside your DAW. The VST would then output, say, MIDI. And again, you wouldn't need EigenD running. We could potentially also write a MIDI driver, so that, again, you just connect up your alpha, it immediately loads the MIDI driver, and then bang, you're just using it. Yes, I recognise that if you start using MIDI, you have the restrictions of MIDI, but when we're often using VSTs, that doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously, you have the option of using something like Max, and you can write your own instruments, etc., that don't go via MIDI. So that's also an option. And I'm actually quite enjoying Max at the moment. Support community is excellent. Finally, of course, I said it doesn't cover Pico. It only covers the alpha and tau. As I say, that's not necessarily fixed for the future. I could also incorporate the Pico library and then get Pico access. But I don't like the idea of using the Pico library directly, and currently it would be impossible to not use that library and get access to the Pico, unlike the alpha and tau, where essentially it's just raw USB code. So, I mean, potentially we could even replace the Picross if we wanted to. I'm not saying, now this is why it is actually a project rather than a product, because these are all things that could be products, and I've yet to decide which I'm likely to want to develop or not. Some obviously require more significant work than others. Finally, the future really depends also on EigenD. Obviously, the Eigen Foundation has been looming around for some time, so it could be that this gives us an option if EigenD doesn't go quite where we want it to go, at quite the pace we want it to go, etc. But if EigenD is developed and continues to be developed, which is what I hope it is, then obviously this is just going to sit alongside. But hopefully at least it means that people can see that their devices can be controlled without EigenD. And that's really all I want to show, really. Okay, have a nice day.